Welcome back to Missin Curfew. Updog Richie, absolute legend, obviously. Lucky to have him on our show today. He reached out, wanted to come on, and everything he's done through his whole life. But the last couple weeks, the last couple days, the way he's represented this game, I mean, that's the reason he's the great one. So Wayne Gretzky, Gretz, thank you for joining us. And as ex-players, buddy, thank you for the way that you've handled yourself the last 3 or 4 days or your whole life. It's just been a pro, bud. You're a pro.
Well, listen, first of all, I really appreciate the kind words. And as you guys know, playing in this game, one of the greatest things about the game is you get a chance to play for the Stanley Cup. But just as important is the people you get to meet. And my goodness, I had dinner last night with Timo Solani and Ty Domi, and we're talking about all the great friendships that we've made over the years playing in the National Hockey League and all the great people that we've been around. And I can't say enough good things about our game, about how nice the guys are who play in the National Hockey League. And if you're not a good guy, you get weeded out pretty quickly. You guys know that. You got to conform. There's 22 guys on a team, and that's what it means. You're on a team, and you all get on the same bus. You all get in the same airplane. You dress in the same locker room, and you become one. And to me, that was the best part of hockey, is the friendships and the people I got to meet and be around playing in the National Hockey League.
Wayne, I just got to say, it was a big weekend, and obviously there was a lot of airtime for you, your wife. Yeah. But for 11,338 days, my friend, you were the NHL goal scoring leader. Does it feel any different this morning waking up? Like, I'm sure your life isn't going to change much, but that's a pretty long time carrying the torch, and you were able to give it off. But what's it feel like this morning, my friend?
Let me take you back a day. When I retired in 1999, it was April 18th. We were playing a Sunday 3:00 game. And I remember walking down Madison Avenue because we lived in the city. My kids went to school here in town, and we loved every minute of being a Ranger and being in New York for 3 years. And as I walked that morning to go get a cup of coffee, I remember the feeling I had. And yesterday morning, my son Ty and I, when we went for a walk, because it was a 12:30 game, we went down to get a coffee. We went down the street, went for a walk. And I said to my son, I said, I kind of have the exact same feeling as I had the day I was retiring. I'm so excited. I felt like I was playing. And I was so proud to be part of the NHL. And I said to my son, he asked me, he said, Dad, are you nervous about this? And I said, no, everything I did, I'm very proud of. I'm so happy for the NHL. I'm very proud of Alex. I'm happy for all the players who are Washington Capitol guys who went through there over the last 20 years. They all deserve a piece of this and credit for this. And I was telling Mr. Leonis, the owner of their Capitals, when he tied the record on Friday night, when they went in the corner, there was 20 guys as one. And I said, that's what makes the NHL so special. Each and every guy was so happy for Alex, but each and every guy felt like they scored that goal. And you can't get that in other sports. We have it in our game. So no, it was wonderful. And it didn't, when I got up today, I was like, all right, I'm still at 894. Okay.
Not too bad.
And I said to my son, I said, but you know what? They're dwindling. And he said, what do you mean they're dwindling? I said, well, Sid beat my record last week, and now Oldby. I said, gosh, I got to keep a couple of them.
Yeah,
it was all good.
You got lots that aren't going to be touched, Gretz, but I want to ask you about, obviously Ovi going through this. Did it take you back to when, you have so many great words to say about Mr. Howe, Gordie Howe, Mr. Hockey, and the way you represent him and how much he meant to you. But did it take you back down to, what you went through when you were trying to break his record and the pressure that was on you and how you handled it? Did it take you back down memory lane a little bit going through this?
100%. As you guys know, I've said this story many a time. To me, Gordie Howe is the greatest player ever lived. Now, we can all sit here and debate because Lemieux is unbelievable, and Beliveau, and Bobby Orr, and Mark Messier. You can go on and on. But, when you're a kid and you have that idol, that never disappears, right? So I got to meet Gordie when I was 10 years old, and I met him at a banquet, charity dinner. He came to my hometown. I sat beside him at the dinner. I couldn't even eat. I was so nervous. I couldn't talk. I just sat there. You know, when you're 10 years old and you're nervous. And then at 16, I got to play with his son, Murray. I remember the first day of training camp. I said to Murray, I was wearing number 9. I played there the year before. And I said, Murray, out of respect for your father, you take number 9 and I'll wear number 16. And I'll never forget, he said to me, you know, Wayne, I'm going to be a doctor. This is my last year of hockey. And true to form, that was his last year, and he went on to become a pediatric doctor in Detroit. And then 17 years old, I'm playing in this WHA All-Star game, and Gordie Howe's my winger. And I'm thinking, oh my God, it was just like yesterday I was having a dinner with Gordie. And so we became friends over the years. And when I was breaking his record, I remember I said to my dad the night before, I said, you know, in some ways I'm so embarrassed to break Gordie Howe's record because he's to me, the greatest player ever and the nicest man, trust me. And my dad said, he said, you just remember, you be as proud of the guy who breaks your record as Gordie Howe is of you breaking his record. And I remember I said to my dad, can I enjoy it for a couple of weeks? And then, you know, as I told you guys earlier, I got to meet him the first time I was 10 years old in my hometown for, I think it was a Lions Club dinner. And then in the mid-2000s, Kelly Chase set up a dinner in Saskatoon. And I didn't tell anybody, and I surprised everyone. And I flew Gordie in by himself with his son. And nobody knew he was coming. And so it was Prime Minister Harper and I were doing this Q&A for 4,000 people. And then I introduced Gordie Howe, and Gordie walked up, and I promise you right now, the people would still be clapping if we didn't sit down. That's how much people loved him. So for me, he came to my hometown to do my first dinner, and maybe one of the last dinners he ever did. Gordie and I did it in his hometown in Saskatoon, and it's a night that I'll never forget. And Gordie was a pretty quiet man, but he was so excited. He brought a couple of buddies back to the hotel. I remember we were in this room with a few guys, and Gordie was playing pool with one of his buddies that he kind of grew up with. And I remember saying to Kelly Chase, you know, when you get past all the accolades and being Gordie Howe, he's still just a normal person. And he was genuinely so excited. And it was one of the greatest gifts I could ever give Gordie Howe for everything that he did for me and my family, and for what he meant to the game and what he meant to me. It was a night I'll never forget.
Yeah, Wayne, I just want to tag that. So, you know, it's your 802nd goal. Gordie comes out, and with his professionalism and his humility, it's not an easy spot to be in, right? And you did such a good job the other night of just articulating how good our game is as a culture and as the family and teammates. But, you know, I guess, what did it mean to you to be able to share that with everyone watching? I mean, all eyes were on Ovechkin this weekend, and you really did such a good job being just a great voice. But what did that opportunity mean to you to have that voice there?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for the kind words. Ovi did everything. You know, I said to my wife, the easy job is for me. I just got to stand there and talk, and I can talk. So, but, you know, you're sitting there, you're thinking, okay, when I was a 10-year-old kid watching TV, you know, when I grew up, there was one game a week on TV, right? Now every game's on, and kids from all over North America can watch almost every game. And I'm sitting there thinking, you know, I want kids to realize how great a game it is and how wonderful of a life it is to be an NHL hockey player. Now, it's hard work, and you got to get a little bit lucky, and you got to get in the right situation. But at the end of the day, the work ethic and the commitment to becoming an NHL hockey player is all worth it. And when you're 10 years old, you don't sit there and say, I'm going to play in the NHL. Now, some kids might do it to, you know, get themselves excited. But we all at 10 years old have this dream. I want to play in the NHL. I want to be Gordie Howe. I want to be Bobby Orr. I want to be Sidney Crosby. I want to be Ovechkin. And it really is worth it. I mean, it's a lot of hard work. You guys know it's tough to play in the NHL. There's only 22 players on each team. There's only 32 teams, I guess. And there's a lot of kids who play, and there's a lot of kids that don't quite make it. I had two brothers that were good hockey players that kind of kicked around in the American League and were up and down a little bit. It's hard to play in the NHL. And so I want to portray to the young kids, listen, this is a great league and a great game. And if you can make it, it's really worth it. It's really special. I grew up in a little town. My dad worked for the Bell Telephone. He used to borrow money from my grandparents to buy my skates beginning of every hockey season in September. I've traveled the world. I've got a great family. I've got to meet so many wonderful people, from Pope John Paul to President Reagan to prime ministers, all because of hockey. Not because I'm a nice guy. It was because of hockey. And so I feel very fortunate.
Wayne, I don't know about that. I think you're a pretty nice guy, and that's part of it too.
Until he beats you on the golf course with you, and you're like,
Until you see him roll the flat stick, Richie, then you're like, Gratz, take it easy on me, fella.
No, but you kind of were just touching on the family aspect, and our families obviously playing the league take a backseat to our accolades, and especially someone as your stature. But I watched your wife Janet was there with you when you broke Gordie's record way back in the day, but watch, they panned to the box when Ovi scored, and she got really emotional and almost cried. And I was just kind of wanted maybe a little insight, just to maybe that was just all the memories flooding back from the past, or kind of what was that all about? Because some people don't really understand the side of that, the family side.
Oh, that was a good question, because I think at that moment she realized that I no longer had the record, and she kind of whispered to me, "Are you okay?" No, but that's what wives do, right? They worry.
Yeah.
That's what husbands do. They worry about their wives. So no, it was a genuine, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, absolutely. She goes, "Good, you did well, and congratulations to him." And then about 2 weeks ago, she said to me, "I got this great gift from Gordie and Colleen Howe." Colleen Howe came up with this idea to create a gift for Janet for breaking his record. And it's a beautiful bracelet that Colleen had made. And so a couple of weeks ago we went, and Janet picked out a beautiful diamond ring with 8 diamonds in it to represent the number 8, and put a really nice note in there, and it says 895 OV inscribed underneath. So, wives and families are important. And I say this to kids when I speak to, not kids, but junior players and college players. They say, if you're going to be a good athlete, you got to be selfish. And I mean that in a good way. Your life has to be committed to playing hockey. And then the people around you, your parents, your wife, your kids, they have to understand too that your commitment the night before a game, the day of a game, your only mindset is to play hockey, right? And so I mean that in a good way when I say you need to be selfish, and you got to have the right people around you. And I was lucky enough. I have a great family, 5 kids, 7 grandchildren, 103-year-old mother-in-law. And my wife, my family has been there with me through the good times and some of the tough times. But, and Mark Messier will tell you that, he was always, family always was so important to everybody in Edmonton when I was a young player. Glenn Sather was the first guy. He would, after a game, he put all the parents on the team bus to go back to the hotel. He always wanted family around. I'll tell you a funny story. He always thought I played better when my dad and mom were in the arena. And we were playing Calgary one year, and we were losing 2-1. And we're playing game 4 in Calgary. And Paul Coffey and I were sitting beside each other and getting ready for the morning skate. And Paul said, "How you feeling?" I said, "I'm okay." He goes, "How's it going?" I said, "Well, I'm all right." But I said, "When I walk out on the ice this morning, I'm going to know if I'm playing good or bad." He goes, "How?" I said, "My mom or dad are sitting behind the bench for the morning skate. Say that thinks I'm not playing very well." I kind of sneak out and look around, and sure enough, my mom and dad would be there. But he was really, whether it was Glenn Anderson's folks or Mark's folks or Paul Coffey's, mine, he really encouraged having family around. That was a big part of the success of not only the individual players, but for the team itself.
Yeah, Gretz, you look great up in the suite with the nice suit on, and Janet looked beautiful, and the way you carried yourself throughout this has been unbelievable. And I hope this isn't a weird question, but did it feel like you thought it was going to feel when Ovi snapped that one home and it finally sunk in? Did it feel like you thought you felt, or was it just because it happened kind of quick, right? You traveled for 2 games and it was done. Did it feel like you thought it was, or was it something different?
No, it was just pure excitement and pure joy for him. No, I honestly really felt like I scored the goals. I was happy for him. There was no, as a matter of fact, when the Islanders took the penalty, I turned to the commissioner. I said, "This is the goal. This is it tonight," because Islanders were playing really well, and there wasn't not a lot of open ice, and they were kind of shutting down Ovi to a certain extent. And I said, "This is the one. If he doesn't score here, we could be going to the game on Thursday," which would have been okay. We were going to just drive back to Washington from the city, and it would have been fine by me and my wife. But no, when he scored, it was just jubilation. My dad told me at a young age that the worst thing in life is jealousy. And, you can't be envious of anyone, and you should be proud. And I'm very proud of what I accomplished. I'm proud of what he did. Let me tell you something. 895 is a lot of goals. Now, you cannot compare eras. Like in the 60s and 70s with Howe and Orr, our era with Mario and myself and Lafleur and Bossy, and then the beginning with, Sid and Ovi. There's too much change. We should enjoy and relish how good the guys were in the 60s and enjoy and relish how good the guys were in the 80s. And just enjoy what we have now. And 20 years from now, with McDavid and McKinnon and Draisaitl and Matthews, the game's going to be better again. And we just keep progressing. And that's what not only life, but sports is too. Like, we're a way better level now, but that doesn't mean it was bad hockey in the 70s. It just means it's better hockey today. And that's what we want to have, right? Mario was the guy that said, "Listen, we got to get rid of hooking and holding. We can't have this anymore." And that was a big change in our game. And now the players that people want to see, Crosby and Ovechkin, we want to see offense. We want to see goals, right? That's how we were brought up in North America. We want excitement. So the game is better today, but it doesn't mean it was bad players in the 80s. It means today is better. Simple as that.
Yeah, I thought your answer on TNT to my old D coach Bonesy was great. You're like, I would have loved a little 3-on-3 overtime where every power play ended up the offensive zone. I was like,
No.
yeah, I'm like, that's
No. 3-on-3 overtime, I love that.
yeah.
My son was showing me something the other day that they had a Gretzky rule. I said, Gretzky rule? I didn't even know that existed. And he goes, look, from 85 to 89, they took away coincidental minors, and you had to play 5-on-5 because we practiced it every day and we got good at it. So they took it out of the game. So in the 80s and 90s, a lot of it was based on, okay, we got to cut down goals. And then the commissioner in the 2000s said, hey, we got to be more like basketball. We got to create more offense. And so, yeah, it's a different game. We used to spend 20 minutes in practice creating a breakout for our power play. And I remember saying one day to Glenn Sather, I said, why are we doing all this stuff? Why don't we just put number 7 on the board and say, let him carry it into the end zone and get ready. But now they start in the offensive zone.
Yeah.
It's game's completely different, and the equipment's better, coaching's better, but it's all good thing. It's all positive, right? There's no animosity. This is progression, and as you guys know, it's whether you get a new car or airplanes today, they're all better, and that's a good thing for life.
Yeah, Gretz, as this is going on, I've been lucky to get to know you through Uppy in this podcast. I've been going through, your career throughout this, right? I played against Ovi. I respect Ovi, but I never played against you, so I was going through yours, and I watched your last goal, 894. Johnny on the spot in front of the net, Wayne. You were there. You won a battle. Johnny on the spot with the little running man. Did it bring back your last goal, too, where you're going through this? Because I just enjoyed that Selly, your kind of trademark, running man, but it was just a nice goal in the blue paint.
I wasn't around that blue paint very much. I was kidding about it, and I didn't really think much about it till after the game was over we were sitting with Mr. Lamorilla was sitting in the box beside us, and I told him how gracious their organization was and how wonderful it was for hockey that they stopped the game, and how cordial the Islander fans were to Ovi and the players. And I didn't think much of it till I went down to the ice after the game. I went in the locker room to talk to the Islander kids. I was telling them a story. I said, you know that video of Patrick Waugh on NHL Network every time he winks? I said he's winking because he stopped my shot. Well, I was game 3 in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and the kids laughed. And then I didn't think about the goal till I saw Johnny McLean. Johnny McLean's working for the Islanders, and Johnny was my winger. And him and I were together on Rangers, and I said, oh my God, I don't even know, but I know you're on the ice, but I think you assisted on my last goal ever, which was 894. And, you know, I knew I was done because I had an 894, and I didn't score the last 8 games. And I knew my career was over. My back was sore. I was tired. It was just time, right? So maybe had I been a little better, I might have got a few more goals the last 8 games, but I'm happy with what I accomplished, and I don't even worry about it.
Yeah, absolutely, Wayne. Just to take us back to the goal scoring in different ways to score goals throughout, you know, your childhood, to Mike Bossy, to the Brett Hulls of the world, to Mario Lemieux, you know, and I think Mike Bossy has the highest goal per game stat in the history of the NHL. But what is it about Alex Ovechkin to you? You know, the longevity or just the strength and will desire to just score goals. But what is it that you've been able to see the last maybe couple years since he's won that Stanley Cup that really stands out to you?
Well, let me say this. Yesterday when I spoke, I was so mad at myself. After the game, I saw John Cooper came, a couple of his coaches came for the game, and after my speech, I said, you know, the one thing I missed out on was Mike Bossy was the greatest goal scorer I ever played against in my career, the purest goal scorer. And I felt bad that I didn't mention that because we were on the island and I had so much respect for Michael. But I was saying, Mike Bossy, Murray Lemieux, Brett Hull, Yuri Curry, the one thing they have in common, and even Alex, they didn't miss the net. I get so tired watching these kids miss the net. Like, you can't score if you don't hit the net. And if you look at Bossy and Hull and Ovechkin, Mario, they never missed the net. And if they did, it was by fluke or whatever. But what makes Alex so special is everything. I said this the other day, the 3 players that I saw in my lifetime that physically were powerful, had finesse, and could score in a hockey sense were Alex Ovechkin, Gordie Howe, and Mark Messier. Those are the 3 guys that had the intangibles. You know, they talk about a 5-tool baseball player. Mm-hmm. Well, those guys were, I guess, a 5-tool hockey player. They could play physical, they could play with finesse, they had speed, and they were smart. And that's what Alex has. He has great hockey sense. And I'll tell you, one thing about every really good goal scorer, they love to score goals. They love to score goals as much as a guy who gets 20 goals. They love getting 50, 60 goals. I asking Timo last night, I was talking about, you know, there's a difference between 1 and 70. And he's like, no, I get excited about every goal. I said, I was the same way. Luke Robitaille was the same way. You love to score. And I got a chance to sit for a half hour yesterday with Brian Trottier before the game. And he was one of the great players of our game and just a real great ambassador and wonderful man. And I was saying to him, you know, when Mike got 50 and 50, I remember telling a couple of guys in Edmonton, how do you get 50 goals in 50 games? That's incredible. Like, and I think he scored the last 2 in like the last 5 minutes of the game to get to 50, which was remarkable. And so people say to me, what's your proudest record? And I always say, you know, 50 is hard. To get 50 goals in 38 games, you're going to have a really nice stretch and a really nice run. And so for me, that's my proudest record.
So Wayne, you just teed me up perfectly for my question there. You know, we talked evolution of hockey. We were talking about your records, but Is that the one that you think might not be touched, or is there another one that you think might not be touched? Because for me, that one's pretty tough. 92 goal a year might be tough.
You know, I think and I might not be right on this because it's so long ago, but the year I got 92, I think I only got 1 goal in the last 8 games that year. And I look back and I go, gosh, why didn't I get 100, right?
Yeah.
I was mad at myself.
Yeah.
The record of 92 is tough. The record of 50 and 39. But listen, any record you have in the National Hockey League is special because you're playing against the greatest players in the world. And then on top of that, you got to be fortunate to play with good players. I was so lucky. I played with so many great players. I mean, Paul Coffey and I started playing together at 14, Bantam Hockey in Toronto, and we ended up on the Edmonton Oilers together. Mark Messier is a 17-year-old kid out of St. Albert, Edmonton, that ends up being one of the great players ever play the game, and we become best friends and champions together. Grant Fuhr to me was one of the greatest goalies he ever lived because we didn't play defense. I used to always say to people, if Grant Fuhr played in Montreal or Boston or New Jersey, he would have the lowest goals against average ever in the history of the game. But Grant didn't care either. He just was like, if we win 6-5, don't worry, that's great. We win 7-6. So I was with the right group. I was with the right players. And, you know, look at Ovi. He played with so many good players too. You got to have the right teammates around you. And I was fortunate to have that. But every record that you can have in the NHL is really, really special.
Gratz, there was a video this morning I saw of Sorokin, the goalie for the Islanders, giving Ovi a stick like that he used. And then he actually said, like, hey, after the season's over in the next couple games, I'll give you my glove that you scored on. Was there anything, you know, back in your day, you think about a big goal that was a record goal? Was there anything given to you or some sort of memorabilia that you were able to keep that you really cherish from a moment in your career?
Probably the record goal. I got the net. I heard, and I don't know if it's true, that Ovi had asked to get the net, and I think he got denied. So now my net's not worth anything anymore. I do it. You know, I kept, at a young age, my dad collected everything, and I was never a collector whatsoever. My dad had my first jersey, my first hockey jacket when I was a stick boy for his senior A team at 4 years old. My jerseys in Edmonton, my game used sticks. I kept all of that. But I was never really a big collector. One day my kids are going to all have it. They can do what they want with it. But, you know, I'm so proud that a lot of that stuff goes in the Hall of Fame and kids get to see it. When I was a kid, I used to go to the Hall of Fame once a year. My dad would take me and I just walked through for hours, and it just really was overwhelming for me. I loved it so much. And I always looked at my dad and said, wow, this is unreal. And so I know how important it is to kids. And so I have a lot of my stuff is in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's great.
Gretz, I wanted to ask you, obviously, you know, the 50 and 39, but, you know, looking at your career and, like, you know, you got more assists than Yogs has got points. I mean, when you sit back and really think about that, Gretz, to me, it's just like, obviously the way you saw the ice, your vision, but like, yeah, Ovi passed you goals. But when you think about that, is that just like, does that still kind of blow you away? Like, I got more assists than Yogs has got points, or you don't look at it that way, kind of?
No, I don't really think about it. You know, again, I played with so many great players, and I played in the right era. You know, it was more of an offensive game, although it is more like that today. There's more offense than there was in the late 90s, early 2000s. I will say this, the year, I remember I had 158 assists, and I really, really wanted to average 2 assists a game and get to 160. And I can't remember the exact number. I think I ended up with 163. So I was really proud of the fact that I averaged 2 assists a game over 80 games.
Yeah. Gretz, I won that. Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. That's a good month for me, Gretz. That was a good month for me, fella. Gretz, I want to ask you about the Four Nations. I know it was a couple months ago, but it was so great for the game. And, you know, we've talked on this podcast. Nobody's done more for Canada, in our opinion, than Wayne Gretzky. But how good was that for the game? You going in there before the gold medal game. Canada, USA. Like, it was just, you talk about the game more than anyone. Like, how great was that for hockey, bud?
It was unreal. It was so good for the game. And what made it good for the game was the players accepted the responsibility of putting out their best effort. So if the players themselves say, well, why am I here? Why are we doing this? I'd rather be 10 days in the Bahamas or Hawaii. It doesn't work, right? It ultimately falls on the shoulders of the 4 teams. And I thought all 4 teams played well, and the 2 best teams were in the final. I got a chance to say hello to all the American boys that I know before the game. And then I spent a couple hours with the coaches in the Team Canada locker room. And I know John Cooper really well. And, you know, you never really bother guys before a game, but it's the first time where I saw him a little bit edgy and nervous. And I said, Coop, is the big one, huh? So the coaches know themselves, right? And so I just sat there and talked to the coaches for a while, told some old stories about 81 playing with Guy Lafleur in the Canada Cup, and 87 Mario and I playing together. And, you know, then I got to go in and read the starting lineup. And then, you know, we went outside and Mike and I were standing there, and Mike said, I'm going to wear this USA jersey in honor of Johnny Gaudreau. And I was like, absolutely, that'll be the best. And so the game itself was just incredible. We get a chance, my son's friends with Daryl Sittler's son, and we get a chance to play a little bit of golf with him. And I said, you know, the Connor McDavid overtime goal was a lot like your dad's goal in 1976 against the Czechoslovakian team for Team Canada. It was unreal. It was great hockey, and both teams played their hearts out. And, you know, that's what, as you guys know, playing in the game, the hockey guys are the best, right? They're just good people. And, you know, you go out there and you battle and you fight and you scratch and claw. And at the end of the day, you shake hands. I thought it couldn't have been any better than it was. It was just great. Now, if you're an American, you wanted the Americans to win 3-2, but we like beating these.
Yeah, too bad.
Yeah, we're all Canadians here. We like
That's a big win for the boys. We'll take it. We'll take it.
And you know what the other thing about it is, and I'm not trying to be a manager or coach, because when I ran Team Canada in 02, we had the World Championships in May of 01 in Germany, and you got a chance to see some of the kids. Okay, is this kid ready to play in the Olympic team? And part of that 4 Nations Cup, the Americans and the Canadians teams, they can assess, okay, did we miss out on a guy? Take a guy like Tom Wilson. Do I think he's got a chance to be on the Olympic team? Absolutely. Scheifele, you know, you can go down. So, you know, this was probably a good thing for the Canadians and the Americans to see, okay, who's going to be better for our team next February. And remember, too, we're playing on a bigger ice surface where speed and size become more of a factor than playing on our ice surface.
for sure. Wayne, this is the last one for me, but
Yep.
I kind of got to ask this. I'm living down in the desert here in Scottsdale, and you were the, owner, coach of the Phoenix Scouties at one point. And just, the team left, obviously, and we all know that. And it was a sad day for a lot of people. But do you think there's a chance it's going to work here and ever come back here? I just wanted your take on that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I loved it. It's a great city, as you know. It's a great sports city. Unfortunately, the arena was probably built in the wrong area. And I don't know if they'll ever get a team back. I know 2 things. There's a lot of Canadians that live down there and winter there who love hockey. There's a lot of sports fans who love to go to Phoenix to watch hockey games. And most importantly, the commissioner and the National Hockey League owners, they love the city of Phoenix. So if they get the right owner and the right building, I don't think there's any question they would love to go back to Phoenix. Now, whether it's going to be 2 years from now or 5 years from now, but I do see, because the NHL really would love to have a team in Phoenix, I could see that for sure happening.
Best coach I've ever had, right now, boys.
5-on-3, ups, 5 on pick up. You're on the 5-on-3.
Best coach I've ever had.
Hey, I don't know about that. That's why we're both on TV.
Hey, Wayne, and just one last thing for me, man. Listen, not only have you been the best player, to play our game, and you honor it so well, but you are the best ambassador that our game has. And, the youth of our sport's lucky that you're diving in with as much charisma as you have. I know I'll be showing my little son videos of you forever, man. So listen, I appreciate what you're doing for the game and our sport and our fans and all the players still playing. It means a lot. Yeah.
I appreciate the kind words, and I did love coaching you. I would tell the other two boys, he worked hard every single practice and every game. We had a 5-on-3 one time, and I said, Scotty, get out there. Jumped over the boards. He came back over, and he goes, Gretz. I go, what? He goes, I've never been on a 5-on-3. Where do I go? I said, well, just get open.
Yeah, there's only 3 of them.
There's only 3 of them, get open. And I love the hat. Great hat.
Yeah, this is for our boy Messier. Yeah, you betcha.
Yeah, Gretz, last one for me, Gretz. I just want to reiterate what Uppy said. I've got lucky to know you. When people ask me how, what's it like to hang out with Wayne Gretzky, I just say he's a better guy than he was a player. And you were the great one, buddy. So keep it up, man. We appreciate you. And thank you for taking the time at Missin Curfew.
No, my pleasure. You guys do a great job, and I really appreciate it. And there's nothing better than the game. It's the greatest game in the world. And so thank you guys all so much. Have a great day. Scotty, don't get hurt skiing.